Okay, well, good afternoon again, everyone. If I could get your attention, please. Good afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed the food, the great food here at the Grand Californian. And it is now time for our program to begin. As president of the Happiest Place on Earth, Ken leads a dynamic team of change agents who support Disneyland and Disney California Adventure Parks, 3 hotels in the downtown Disney district. A 28-year veteran of the Walt Disney Company, Ken led the revitalization and reimagination of Disney businesses like Disney Cruise Line, ESPN Wide World of Sports in Florida, Disney Vacation Club, Adventures by Disney, and consumer products commercialization. Ken joined Disneyland Resort 3 years ago during its closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic and led the resort through the most trying time in its history. Today, Disneyland Resort employs more than 34,000 cast members and supports the local community with over 44,000 indirect jobs in the surrounding community. Ken also serves on the Chalk and Visit California boards and is actively involved with Disney volunteers. Please give a warm Orange County Forum welcome to Ken Potrock.
In case you didn't know it, we're celebrating 100 years of the Walt Disney Company, and the Disneyland Resort is proud to be the heart, the soul, and quite honestly, the place to experience this once-in-a-lifetime milestone and celebration. The resort, if you haven't had a chance to wander the resort recently, is beautifully decked out. And of course, we have specialty merchandise like the little ear hats that you guys all have, and food and beverage offering like all the desserts that you have in front of you. In fact, you're going to be sampling 2 of our signature desserts created for the 100th anniversary that were favorites of Walt and Lillian Disney. So a little history there. And that's not all. As part of Disney 100, we launched not 1, but 2 nighttime spectaculars, and we brought back the Magic Happens parade, a super fun, high-energy daytime parade that ran for just 13 days before the COVID closure. I call it a newish parade. Additionally, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opened in January and is already really a gargantuan hit for us. This family-friendly attraction is a great addition to the beautifully reimagined Mickey's Toontown. We're really very proud of that. We're also having a lot of fun with the Disney 100 name tags. Now, Disneyland cast members were the only ones in the entire company to get these specific name tags. And what's really special about them is that they're personalized with the names of our favorite characters. During our 412-day closure, we were focused on what I called our mission, and it was really very simple. Our mission was to reopen the resort, to get our cast members back to work, and to restart the economic engine that is the Disneyland Resort. An engine that's vital to our community and to the livelihood of so many people in this region. While it's been a long and challenging road, I'm excited to share that the resort is now 34,000 cast members strong. That's a big deal. That number surpasses our pre-pandemic hiring levels, casting levels, making us the largest employer in Orange County once again. So very excited. It's quite a comeback story. As you heard, I got here about 3 years ago. At that point in time, we were closed, and we had 2,000 cast members during the pandemic, during those early days of the pandemic. But what a comeback it's been, and really exciting. We're also continuing to invest in the cast experience, speaking of our cast members, positioning Disneyland as an employer of choice in this region, starting with wages. All entry-level roles are on a path to $20 minimum by 2024, which is well above the California minimum wage and leading in the marketplace. We're really proud of that and continue to work every day on those kind of entry-level levels for our cast members. Additionally, because it's a layering effect from a hiring perspective and a retention perspective, the Aspire program offers free college tuition for hourly cast. with both online and in-person courses. Online, and I should say newly in-person courses, including 2 hometown colleges, Cal State Fullerton and Fullerton College. +10,000 cast members have already participated in this life-changing opportunities that enables job progression and career growth for those who otherwise may not have been able to afford college. I think it's really important to think about that. You know, we have cast members that are coming out of high school or newly coming out of college that come into an entry-level job. That's great, but the real goal here is the stair-step progression of a career. And how do we get them to do that? Education is the most powerful step that we have, so that that entry-level person could someday be like Clark Jones in our audience, becoming the Senior Vice President of Finance for the Disneyland Resort. That's the thought process. And we also offer childcare assistance, training and development opportunities, cast previews, and exclusive events, and so much more. We are a fun place to work. Disneyland is the happiest place on earth to visit, and we also want it to be the happiest place on earth to work, quite simply. Another special milestone we're celebrating this year, something near and dear to my heart, is the 40th anniversary of our Disney Volunteers program that was started in 1983 by a small group of cast members right here at Disneyland. We are very, very proud of this long-standing initiative and the support that it provides to the community. And it is one of the largest philanthropic investors throughout this region. Disney contributes more than $10 million annually to support kids and families. Another very important factor. We're also focused on making meaningful change with our commitment of over $5.5 million in workforce development programs. Since its launch in 2017, we've worked with a number of nonprofits to provide career development skills that have touched the lives of more than 10,000 Anaheim kids. That's a big deal. Thank you. And to pile onto that a little bit, I'm very proud to announce today that we're committing another $500,000 in workforce development grants to local nonprofits serving Anaheim. All of this is possible because our recovery following the pandemic was swift and strong, enabling us to invest in our cast and to be good citizens in the community. Both are top priorities for us. At the same time, we are positioned to continue to be a job creator and a driver of tourism in the region and throughout the state. In fact, not just a driver, but a leader. We are excited to see tourism coming back strong, with Southern California and Anaheim specifically leading the way. Visitation, average daily hotel rates, and tourism occupancy tax revenues are all up over the pre-pandemic levels, and simultaneously, the Anaheim Convention Center has recovered with very strong future bookings. According to Visit California, Orange County is the fastest growing tourist region. Orange County. That's really, really special. This is great news for all of us, and the recovery has been fueled in part by our reopening and continued investment. When we think about sustaining this momentum and continuing to invest in the future, I'm reminded of another optimist by the name of Walt Disney, who once said, "Disneyland will never be completed. It will continue to grow as long as there is imagination left in the world." And ladies and gentlemen, we've got plenty of imagination. And we continue to deliver on that promise today with more than $2 billion of investment in already announced projects taking shape across the resort. $2 billion already taking hold. There's the Villas at Disneyland Hotel, a new Disney Vacation Club tower featuring 344 rooms, opening this September. To provide a sense of impact, the additional occupancy from this tower is expected to generate $6 million in incremental tourism occupancy tax that goes directly to the city of Anaheim's general fund. Jim, that's good, right? Okay. It's a great example of when Disney invests, Anaheim benefits. And I can tell you, because I study it every minute of every day, the demand is there. We were blown away by the overwhelming response when we went on sale with this Disney Vacation Club Tower that opened up earlier this month. And by the way, consumers who are coming from not only all over the country, but all over the world. Again, that's very positive for Anaheim as well. Now, right next door, the Disney Paradise Pier Hotel is undergoing an extensive transformation to Pixar Place Hotel and is expected to be completed this winter as well. And it doesn't stop there. We're continuing to reimagine Downtown Disney, which we all know is a local favorite, with more than a dozen new and enhanced dining and retail offerings coming over the next 18 months, including the ever-popular Portos, the world-renowned, exactly. I need to talk about that for a second, because the world-renowned Portos and the world-renowned Din Tai Fung and the evolution of Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen, Coastal Grill and Patio, those are all really good things, right, for our community. They are not good things for my waistline. So I'm trying so hard. I am happy to report that construction has already begun on Paseo and Centrico, which are two new dining locations that will offer Mexican cuisine created by Michelin-starred chef Carlos Gaitan, who, by the way, was the first Mexican-born Michelin-star chef, period. So really exciting from that perspective as well. Over at Disneyland California Adventure Park, Avengers Campus is expanding deeper into the multiverse with an all-new, what we call e-ticket attraction that's currently in development. When it opens, guests will join forces, by the way, including you. I need you to join forces with your favorite heroes to defeat the evil King Thanos. And as you can see, he looks pretty daunting. So we're going to need all the help that we can get. Around the corner, San Francisco Square will open later this summer with new dining, shopping, and character interactions inspired by Baymax and his friends from the Disney film Big Hero 6. And despite the scaffolding, which is not my favorite visual to show, this area is already beginning to look amazing. We're also thrilled to have a brand new show coming to the Hyperion Theater. This is one that I'm really excited about. It's called Rogers the Musical, and it's premiering on June 30th. The show will chronicle Steve Rogers' heroic journey from normal man to becoming Captain America. Oh, by the way, it's a musical. So very exciting. I guarantee it's going to be a big hit. We're really thrilled from what we've seen so far in the development. At Disneyland Park, work is underway in New Orleans Square to enhance shopping and dining opportunities that will bring the story of Tiana to life, which will be a perfect complement to Tiana's Bayou Adventure attraction that will be opening in late 2024. And lastly, a project that was announced by Bob Iger, but is not part of the $2 billion in projects that I talked about earlier, it's incremental to that, is an Avatar experience coming to the Disneyland Resort. We're really excited about that. But stay tuned, this is going to be really, really exciting. We're thinking bold. Our future plans for enhancement and expansion are incredibly ambitious as we continue to push the bar on creativity, on storytelling, on the guest experience, as only Disney could do. And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, we're just getting started. That's what's so exciting about all of this. When I talk about Disney's plans for the future, I really mean our combined plans, our combined future, including the future of Anaheim, Orange County, the state, in the years and decades ahead. That's the kind of planning we need to do. We've been working with the city of Anaheim on Disneyland Forward, which you're going to hear quite a bit about today. And it's a collaborative planning process that, if, I'd like to say when approved, will provide us with greater flexibility to optimize land development and add more capacity. That's important, adding more capacity that would lead to more visitation, it would lead to increased tax revenue, it would lead to more jobs in the city. To put it simply, Disneyland Forward sets the stage for significant and multi-decade investment for the future. This is the next generation of the Disneyland Resort. The opportunities are boundless. And as I said earlier, when Disney invests, all boats rise and everyone benefits. That's our approach. To delve deeper into Disneyland Forward and really paint a picture of what this could mean for Anaheim, local businesses, Orange County, the state, I'd like to invite three very special guests to join me today. Hi, you guys. Hey. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. I really appreciate it. We've been on this journey for several years. I've been working with this group and others. But today we're going to start from the very beginning because we wanted to make sure that everyone here today walks away with a very, very clear understanding of what Disneyland Forward is and why it is so vitally important to the future of Anaheim and this region. And when I say future, I mean our future. And I truly mean all of us, the Disneyland Resort, our neighbors, the residents, local businesses, the city of Anaheim, Orange County, and of course the state of California. So that's a little bit of a background, but these guys actually know what they're talking about. So I thought we would do a little bit of a panel and get a sense of what is this Disneyland Forward thing all about. So Rachel, I'll go to you first.
Well, to put it simply, Disneyland Forward is taking the land use approvals that we received back in the 90s and updating them for the future. So if you can remember, back in the 90s or before these approvals, we just had one theme park, Disneyland, and just one hotel. But what is amazing is back then, the city of Anaheim and the Disneyland Resort just had a vision to create a multi-day destination in this Anaheim Resort area. And so with that entitlement process back then, those land use approvals allowed us to build all the things around us. So adding in a second theme park with Disney California Adventure, the Grand Californian Hotel and Spa, Downtown Disney, other supporting developments, and all the hotels within the Anaheim Resort area. So that enabled that, and we continued to develop. We've built Cars Land, Avengers Campus, Galaxy's Edge. And so what we're trying to do is, update that so we can set ourselves up for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
So, Joe, you want to pile on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Anaheim is a unique place. Anaheim is a place where visions come to grow and thrive. Anaheim knows how to do big visionary things, starting with the biggest vision of them all 68 years ago with Disneyland. And, as Rachel touched on, 23 years ago, the city and Disney came together and were able to harness the spirit of cooperation to deliver on a promise, really, to the community with the Disneyland Resort project. And as Rachel mentioned, that touched off all these great things, including Anaheim's first resort luxury hotel, which we're sitting in right now. Right. And in addition, it touched off 23 years of unabated growth in hotel rooms in the resort area, which was completely transformational. And Disneyland Forward is unique because now here we are in 2023 at this historic moment in time, once again, channeling that spirit of cooperation and collaboration with the city of Anaheim to do big things and chart the next 3-4 decades of growth in the resort area. And it's a really powerful time right now.
Yeah, I think it's a unique moment in time. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we begin to go forward. But, when you begin to paint a picture of the art of the possible, that's what Disneyland Forward is all about. So, as you begin thinking about Disneyland Forward, let's talk a little bit about why it's so important. And we'll get into the why now in a little bit. But why is it so important? What does it do for Anaheim specifically?
Yeah, I touched a little bit about, how we want to update the land use rights that we had before and kind of what we call spread them out within the land we have. So I thought maybe a chart or a master plan would help. So I'm going to stand up here. I'm going to point to this screen here, but hopefully I can direct people to, a little bit. So, this is, Disneyland, California Adventure here. Here's Harbor and Catella. So over here is what we call the west side. And a lot of you may have even parked at the Simba lot, which is kind of north of downtown Disney, adjacent to Paradise Pier. And so we call that the Simba lot. And then to the north of downtown Disney is what we call, the Stitch lot. So as an example, even though we have the ability to build more theme park square footage, we actually can't build it here in these land parcels. We actually need to have the rights. And so let's say we imagine we wanted to extend California Adventure. We love, the idea of doing that or the possibility of even extending Disneyland. And even more than just extending it, we'd love the ability to build something new, maybe themed areas that integrate with lodging that have downtown Disney. So we're just trying to envision what the future could be. And so we want to allow for that. And so when you think of these two land areas here, and you look at Toy Story lot, that's another area that's ripe for some envisioning in the future. You have an opportunity there. And so what you just saw is I just started pointing at some parking lots, but we would find a way to replace it. And so even when we think about long-term master planning, we could build a multi-level garage here on the other side of Harbor. So that's an example of what we mean updating our land use rights to enable us to kind of continue growing for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Well, and parking, I know this, parking is probably the least valuable or least optimized use of really, important land in the city of Anaheim. So the ability to optimize it in a very different way is incredibly important. So that becomes part of what this conversation is all about. Okay. So as we think about, Joe, maybe I'll turn to you. As we think about Disneyland Forward and starting to get a sense of what it is, how do we optimize land use so that it gives us the most capacity and then drives all the other ecosystem benefits that we talked about? What is Disneyland Forward not? Because that's an important question.
So that's a great question. So what Disneyland Forward is Disneyland Forward is not any additional square footage or any additional hotel keys. So Disney's not seeking any additional square footage, hotel keys, or public funding. None of those three things are part of the conversation in Disneyland Forward. In the original 1990s approvals, Disney had about 6.8 million square feet of theme park square footage approved, which is a huge number. And it might surprise most of the people in this room to know that we've built less than half of that amount that we're already approved for, about 46%. So if you think about that, here we are, a 68-year-old property, and we're not even halfway there yet. So Disneyland Forward is all about taking the balance of that square footage we have and allowing us to move it to new places and do different things with it and integrate it with different uses in a very powerful way, which I know Rachel's going to touch on.
Well, and it's also, from the 1990s to the 2020s, how consumers absorb and ingest entertainment has changed a lot. And again, this begins to contemplate, what the consumers want, in today's entertainment experience versus 30 years ago. How do we think about why this is important now versus 10 years ago or 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think you just started to touch upon it. I think going off of what you said, I think consumers, what they want, guess how they vacation, what they're expecting out of leisure vacation. Even the Disney company, creates new content, new stories, and even acquire some, right? So you can see so much change there, and our Imagineers continue to innovate, come up with new ideas to satisfy these guests. I touched upon a little bit about integration of different uses. What's funny is, this was decades ago. We couldn't have imagined, we had this spot is for a theme park, this spot is for a hotel. Everything was so separated into different parcels. It's funny that you can't have them all integrate together within our current use. And so like that could be the new next generation of things. And so, where Disneyland put theme parks on this global map, what would that next innovation be out of our Imagineering team? What would be the future? And what we'd love is for those future innovations to have a spot here in Anaheim. Why not? I couldn't have imagined decades ago that we would create something like Galaxy's Edge, right? I mean, that is, something amazing I couldn't have dreamt up. And so I bet you there's tons more just like that, in the next decade that we can come up with. So we just love to set ourselves up for that continued growth.
And for those, Rachel, that don't know, building out these kind of huge capital investments are not, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we opened this next year?
Yes.
These are 5 and 10 and even 20-year kinds of endeavors, and really begins to give you a sense of, what's the art of the possible. Can you give me a little bit more context as we begin to think, what would this look like as we begin to go forward?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, the art of the impossible. I think, we would love to imagine, different, different creative aspects. And I wanted to try to figure out, how to explain this. So I brought a few examples. I don't know if we can jump to some of those examples right now. But what I tried to figure out is, what are some examples that we have all around the world that begin to illustrate, this integration, right? And so I have some pictures here, but full caveat, I'm not announcing anything. I think I'm gonna get in trouble if I commit to anything right now. So this one example, so Frozen Kingdom is gonna be opening, in Tokyo Disney Sea soon. But, so this is, an immersive world that has to do with our, famous animation, beloved animation of Frozen. But what is amazing about this immersive world is that it's not just opening by itself, it's a part of this bigger integrated development called Fantasy Springs. So when you look at Fantasy Springs, it's not just Frozen Kingdom, it actually has Rapunzel's Forest, another immersive world. It also has Peter Pan's Neverland. And in addition to that, it's got a themed hotel within Fantasy Springs. So it's integrated in, as well as other retail, dining, and entertainment. So that is a massive expansion at Tokyo Disney Sea, over 30 plus acres. I mean, I would love to be able to bring something like that, or the next generation of that, over to the resort. Another example I brought here to illustrate this is Zootopia. So what's awesome about Zootopia is that, we had a hit, Zootopia, the animation, through China and in Shanghai. And so what we'd love to do is just respond to that consumer affinity for it. So, whet their appetite, allow them to connect with their favorite animation and bring it to life. And so our Imagineers thought up, this Zootopia themed area that's coming to Shanghai. So those are just some examples of the forward-looking, ideas. And, I know you mentioned Avatar, and, we're in the midst of figuring out, how do we bring that to life and where, in our Disneyland.
And Joe, I want to shift over to you for just a second, because we talk a lot about when we invest,
Yes.
it benefits the community. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about that as well.
Absolutely. There's a chart that we're going to bring up here in a second, and this is one of my favorite charts, because this chart right here, I'm going to stand up here and point to it a little. This chart here shows the last 23 years of TOT collections in the city of Anaheim. So TOT, transient occupancy tax, the hotel revenue. And you can see it starts back in 1999 and runs all the way through to today. So you can see here, there is a very strong correlation between each time we make a significant investment in the theme park and hotel revenue. And for all the points Ken raised about that adds in capacity, it adds people, they stay longer, and all the things that go with it. This story right here, aside from, even with the blip with COVID, we're right back on track here. And you can see over the 20-year period, it's a quadrupling of tax revenue, hotel tax revenue, which is a tremendous story. And so Disneyland Forward is all about making sure this graph continues to go this way.
So I'll just talk about one more component of it as we think about it. So I get the impact, right? So there's a rippling effect that goes through the whole ecosystem that I talked about. There's also, lots of people that have concerns about what's the environmental impact of this. And that's something, Joe and team, I know, we're being incredibly sensitive to try to make sure we understand, what does this mean? We don't want to disrupt people's lives and livelihoods and neighborhoods and all of those things. How do we manage our way through that? How do we think about that?
Yeah, that's a great point. A project like this size, just like any large project, has a number of impacts that have to be considered and worked out. So the original Disneyland Resort project prepared an environmental impact report back in the 90s, and Disneyland Forward right now, the city is preparing one for Disneyland Forward. And the environmental impact report, the EIR, is really the technical piece of the equation of the impact. It's one piece of the puzzle. There's a personal piece of the puzzle as well, which is the fact that as good neighbors, it's very important to us, and it's one of our core values, to go out and reach out into these neighborhoods and interact with the residents, directly with the businesses, explain Disneyland Forward to them in a very clear manner, and also hear what their concerns are, and then start brainstorming together on collaborative ways we can manage through those concerns, changes we might need to make, different things we might need to do. And so on Disneyland Forward, we launched this project 22 months ago, and in that time, we've had a number of town halls, community coffees, direct meetings, all to listen and engage with our neighbors, and it's been a fantastic process, and that kind of collaboration and that process makes for a better project in the end. And it takes time, right? It takes time. We've spent countless hours walking in the community, looking out people's kitchen windows to see exactly what it is they're concerned about. So that's the kind of personal touch that I think is so important and foundational to what we're doing with Disneyland Forward.
Joe, I think about things like, I call them listening posts. If we're not listening to the community, to residents, to neighbors, if we're not listening, then we can't address the concerns that they have. One of the things we pride ourselves on as an organization is that we're great creative problem solvers. But you can't solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is. So that's why this has been so vitally important. We use words like collaborative, and we use words like empathy and sensitivity, and I think that really is, an underpinning of why we like to position ourselves and feel strongly about being a really great partner with the city and the community, because we do these kinds of things and go this extra mile.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm going to shift a little bit. Dr. Puri, if you're ready, you've been quiet. I don't know if you were taking a nap.
I'm listening.
I'm going to shift over to you for a second. I think one of the things that we asked Dr. Puri and his team to do is to take a look at this kind of approach and what kind of impact it can have on our community economically. And so I'd love to bring you front and center and have you talk a little bit about your research and your findings, and maybe we'll quiz you a little bit afterwards.
Sure. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Great to join you here. But nothing beats having a high five with Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, that's good.
I have to tell you that. It's so exciting. Well, Disneyland asked us to evaluate 3 different scenarios for possible expansion of Disneyland. And I'm going to go through these three scenarios and tell you what the results are. The first scenario, these are hypothetical for illustration purposes. The first scenario is an investment of $1 billion in expanding Disneyland theme parks. We expect that this expansion will take place 4 years to build, and then there'll be annual operation ongoing. The second scenario is a new hotel or equivalent Disneyland vacation club units, 400 rooms. And that expansion, we estimate, is going to take about 3 years to build, and then it'll get into operation on a regular basis. And then the third scenario is a more comprehensive, integrated investment, a full build-out of maximum entitlement that Disneyland currently has, which will include theme park expansion, hotels, DVCs, anything that Disneyland can think of, and I know they can think of a lot of good stuff to do. That we think, for purposes of this estimation, we assume it's going to take 10 years. Now, it could take more than that, and probably will, but for the purpose of this research, we assume it's 10 years. We are going to estimate the impact on 3 different regions, City of Anaheim, of course, Orange County, and California. And we look at 4 different variables for the impact: employment, number of jobs created, labor income, wages and salaries, economic output or value added, as the economists call it, and tax revenue, implications for each of these 3 geographic areas. Now, we use an industry standard approach called the IMPLAN. It's a model that generally used for this approach. Very sophisticated model, but this is a common model to be used. And there are some terms I have to explain before I give you the results, so we can make sense of those results. When initial investment takes place, for example, in the first scenario, $1 billion, it's called the impacts from that are called direct impacts. Those are like capital expenditures, ongoing expenditures for cast members, or third-party operators like Downtown Disney, and off-site spending by visitors to the Disneyland. Those are all direct spending, direct expenditures. But those direct expenditures lead to secondary impacts, two kinds of secondary impacts. One are from suppliers of goods for the direct expenditure. Think of this as supply chain effects. And then at a subsequent level of spending that takes place from earnings of people who have been working on all these projects. When they spend money, that leads to more economic activity. And those are called induced impacts. So the total of the two is called secondary. And if you add the secondary impact and the direct impact, you get the total impact of a particular initial investment. So we look at those, and then we look at, of course, fiscal impacts, which are the tax revenue implications that for the city, for Orange County and Southern California, and California as a whole. So let's look at the results. Scenario one. Remember, it's a $1 billion investment, theme parks. We estimate that each year of theme park construction will generate 958 jobs, plus another 162 jobs in secondary impacts, for a total of 1,120 jobs in 1 year of construction. Now, this construction takes 4 years, so 4 times that is 4,480 jobs from the construction phase of the first scenario. Then the theme park expansion comes into operation and things happen. On an ongoing basis, it will support 2,132 direct jobs, 160 secondary jobs, for a total of 2,292 jobs on an ongoing basis year after year. We look at labor income, wages, salaries created. We estimate that from the construction aspect, a total of $403 million worth of labor income will be generated, of which $88 million per year, direct, 113 million secondary, for a total of annual wages and salaries of $101 million. For over 4 years, that's $403 million approximately. Similarly, for operations, the total impact on wages and salaries is $120 million, made up of, again, secondary and direct impacts. When we look at output or value added, from this first phase, construction will generate $251 million worth of output from direct impacts, $36 million from secondary impacts, for a total of $287 million per year from construction activity. For over a 4-year period, that adds to the value of $1.147 billion in total increase in output that will be generated. From operations, ongoing operation of the theme park expansion, $253 million additional output will be generated. Now let's look at the tax impact of this first scenario. From 4 years of construction, the city of Anaheim is expected to receive $11 million increase in their tax revenues. From ongoing operations, which are annual, go year after year, the increase will be $15 million. Now, the $15 million, to put some perspective on that, is about 8% of the pre-pandemic total tax revenue that the city has been getting from the Anaheim resort area, which before pandemic was about $190 million, $195 million. So it's about 8% of that. Let's look at scenario 2, which is a hotel construction or DVC or Disney Vacation Club units. That construction is expected to last about 3 years, as I mentioned. So over 3 years, we think that construction will generate 626 jobs total every year, for a total 3-year total of 1,878 jobs. From operations, there will be an increase of 353 jobs every year. Construction is done, now operations, so every year you have 353 jobs that are sustained over a period of time. In terms of labor income, the total labor income from 3 years of construction will be $138 million, and the increase from operations year after year will be $25 million. Similarly, in output, the total output will increase by $300 million from construction work over the 3-year period, and then $63 million year after year as the hotel or DVC units continue to operate. What about the tax impact? Well, the 3 year of construction will add about $4 million to the city of Anaheim's tax revenue. And on an annual basis, it will add $9 million from the operation of hotel or the DVC units. That is about 5% increase on the pre-pandemic total tax revenue. Now let's look at the last scenario, which is the integrated development of multiple hotels maybe, or DVCs, and theme park expansion. It's a big project. And we think it's going to take about 10 years, at least 10 years to complete, maybe take more, but we're assuming for now, for the purpose of this simulation, 10 years. Over 10 years, each year we expect 5,171 jobs to be sustained by construction. So over 10 years, that's a total of 51,710 annual jobs that construction will create. On an ongoing basis, the operation of this integrated huge development will increase jobs by 26,764 direct jobs, 1,588 secondary jobs. Now you got it, right? The total jobs is 28,352 on an ongoing basis. When we look at labor income and output, again, the totals are given here, $4.4 billion in construction wages and salary increase, 1.7 or 7.8 billion dollars from operations year after year, and output will be increasing by $11.7 billion from construction and $3.657 billion in terms of output. Now, the tax revenue are the really interesting numbers. $114 million we expect will be generated from 10 years of construction to the city of Anaheim. We're talking only about the city of Anaheim for now. But $244 million, our model simulation tells us, that amount of money will be generated year after year from the operation of this development. Now, that is more than twice the size of the existing pre-pandemic tax revenue that the city gets from Anaheim Resort area. So this gives you a measure, a dimension to the city of Anaheim's tax increases from various scenarios. But these are multiple combinations. You can put them together. These are for illustration purposes. Let me also show you the results for the state of California. Similar modeling, similar results, but of course for the state as a whole. Total of 7,836 jobs in scenario 1 from construction, 34 from ongoing operation in scenario 1, and similarly labor income and output for the city, for the state of California as a whole. So there's a substantial economic activity that accrues to the state of California from this scenario. In terms of tax revenue, $66 million from construction will be generated at the state level, and $21 million in operations from the first phase. In the second phase, again, you have employment numbers and labor income and output. The tax revenue generated is about $20 million from construction and about $3 million in operations from a hotel. Most of the tax revenue accrues at the local level, at the city level, rather than at the state level. The third scenario, the most comprehensive, of course, there are much larger numbers. Total employment from construction alone is estimated to be about 85,570 jobs over 10 years. And on an ongoing basis, annual basis, 21,304 jobs from operation. And similarly, labor income and output in those numbers that are shown here. In terms of fiscal impact, construction is expected to generate about $707 million to the state of California, or areas outside Anaheim, because Anaheim is not included in this, and $347 million in operations on an annual basis will accrue to the rest of California. So this is sort of an overview of the study that we did to give you some idea what kind of impacts you can expect. As I said, these are for illustration purposes, and we hope that this will be helpful to the decision makers as they go about analyzing and thinking about what to do next. I'm going to turn it back to Ken.
Dr. Puri, what's fascinating to me really are many things, but I'll pick on two. The first one is, as we begin to contemplate the magnitude of this, the idea of more than doubling TOT tax over a decade-long plus period of time is a very exciting prospect, because we begin to think about what could that money go to make the life of Anaheim residents that much better. So that's sort of one part of this. And then the second part of it, I just want to make sure I understood. On the green charts that you showed me, if I look at Anaheim and Orange County and the state, that's actually a stacking effect. There's a level of cumulative that goes with that. Am I correct in understanding
You're
that?
right. The tax revenue figure that we showed you are for those geographic entities. The California tax revenue numbers do not include Anaheim. Anaheim stands by itself, and Orange County that I did not show, but that'll be by itself. When you look at employment numbers and labor income and output, those are stacked up.
Yeah.
So California number includes Orange County and Anaheim, so it's a comprehensive number. You're
Got
right.
it. Very interesting. Rachel, as we begin to think about the magnitude of, and I'll just talk about tax revenue, because there's other magnitudes, how do we, continue to drive more tourism? How do we continue to position Anaheim as a great place to live, work, and play? How do we continue to attract talent or retain talent in our marketplace? There's a lot of benefits that come with this, but one of the very specific benefits that this study helps point out is the tax benefits. So you look at that tax revenue, how do you think about what could that be used for?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you, Dr. Puri, for that information. I think, when I look at, what Dr. Puri presented, the way I think about those scenarios are each of them are just building blocks, right? And so you have scenario one with a theme park, that's a $1 billion theme park, that's one kind of element, I guess, building block. A hotel development's another building block. I think in reality, we're stacking multiples of those theme park investments and maybe the lodging combined, in it over time. And that, the construction, I joked, I thought, oh, it'd be wonderful to see that happen in 10 years. Like the reality is, right, I think, as Joe pointed out, the doubling of that tax revenue happened over several decades, right? And so I think to get to that full entitlement, it'll be several decades as well. But if I just take a moment and just use one of those building blocks, so the $1 billion theme park investment, for example, that's a significant investment, right? Something like that could, create capacity and, potential for attendance, over 1 million. Like that's the scale of Galaxy's Edge as an example, right?
Just Galaxy's Edge.
That's right. And so, we wanted to understand, to your point about, what could this tax revenue provide? How do we illustrate this and what it means for potential benefits? So, I think, it's great we partnered with the city of Anaheim to get some information to help illustrate this. Ultimately, the decision is really, up to the city of what they're going to spend, but there is the potential to use some of this tax revenue for city services, other programming as well. But just to give you, a sense for scale for this $1 billion theme park investment, that could, for example, fund 4 fire companies as one example, or a 4-acre community park with a year of operations. It could also, pay for 44, police officers. I don't know, all of these illustrations are in 4s, but it's to give you the magnitude of what it could provide. Or, if the city chooses, you could build libraries or road improvements. I think that, I think it's what the city chooses, but that should give you an example of how tax revenue helps to fund other city services and programs.
And again, the examples that Rachel gave are tied to a $1 billion investment. We look at this as multiples of that $1 billion investment, as when the benefits then would come in multiples as well. So just want to make sure we're clear in getting that across. Okay, so I think that gives us a little bit of a sense of what it is. It gives us a little bit of a sense of some of the impacts that this can have. It gives us a sense of what those impacts could do for members of the community and making Anaheim this incredibly even more special place than it is today. So I think that's a great descriptor of all the things that we wanted to showcase with this group earlier today. So I actually want to thank the three of you, because I know a lot of work went into thinking about how to, one, present this, two, how to present it with context, and three, how to make sure that people can walk out of here, with enough information that they can not just understand it themselves, but explain it to their organizations and their neighbors and other constituents, in the marketplace. So I'm going to thank the three of you very much for your participation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be on a stage with three people much smarter than me. As you can see, I really do hope you can see, we have great optimism for the future possibilities of Disneyland Forward and the city of Anaheim. And I hope that you're as inspired as we are at the art of the possible. We believe that it's more than possible, that it's the right thing to do for so many different reasons, whether those reasons are great opportunities for the Walt Disney Company, or great opportunities for the city of Anaheim, or great opportunities for our residents, or great opportunities for our business partners throughout the community. By the way, business partners that are here today, and maybe business partners that are contemplating coming here tomorrow. So I think that's something that I think is incredibly important. Something I've been thinking a lot about, and it's interesting, even sitting up on stage, I was thinking about it. I've been thinking about what I want to share about Anaheim and what an incredibly unique situation we have right now available to us. Again, looking at the economic engines of tourism that are available to us. Now, you heard a little bit about the early 90s, but back in the early 90s, Disney and the city of Anaheim worked collaboratively on the vision for the next 3+ decades. That was all in the 90s. Together, we built this very unique tourism engine, and the vision that we had for continued growth of this community is quite honestly not just manifested itself, it's quite honestly a marvel, and it's quite honestly something that other communities look to, with being incredibly impressed. So I think it's a very unique and special and advantageous benefit to the city of Anaheim, Orange County, and in fact the entire state. By the way, I think we all saw it. When we were all shut down, tax revenue dries up. Lots of challenges are presented to our community, and again, how quickly we rebounded, how quickly we're able to begin the engagement of job creation and all of the things that go with that, I think is a real specialness of the uniqueness of what Anaheim has and the possibilities that we have. We're incredibly excited about the opportunity to do it again. So if you think about what we did in the 1990s together, we look forward to the next 10 and 20 and even 30 years ahead. The economic engine that is the Disneyland Resort is going to be turning 68 years young in this July. And we believe, this is an amazing thing to say, that we believe that the Disneyland Resort has more potential than ever. Think about that. I know that I'm in my 60s, and I know I don't have more potential than ever, but the Disneyland Resort does. I'm going to repeat what I said, not about me, that our community has more potential than ever. Who could imagine that a 68-year-old investment would have the ability to continue to create this kind of dynamic growth? When we work together, the possibilities are endless. We truly believe that. And that is exactly what we're trying to do. And I don't believe you'll find a better partner. I say that truly from my heart. Anaheim is our home. We love this community. We want to make it an even greater place to live, to work, and to play. And together we are stronger, and we can help our community grow and thrive with public services, support for local businesses, and a lifestyle that we can all be incredibly proud to be a part of. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us. Thank you all.